Well, welcome to the short video to look at your midterm exam and to look at how you can do well on this midterm exam by exploring some tips and techniques associated with that exam. So let's go ahead and get right into it. First thing on the midterm exam, you need to read the question. The instructions are out there. This is a 4-question short answer exam. It's open book, open note, open web, closed collaboration with others. So you can see the questions right here. You can start into those questions at the beginning of the semester, but you do need to make sure that you're answering the question directly and that you're answering exactly what it's asking for. So when you look at the first question, there are 3 characteristics of information security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. That's what that CIA stands for. You need to explain the importance as it relates to the development of policy, education, or technology. So you've got to select one of the CIA components. You've got to select either policy, education, or technology. And you've got to relate the two together. There's kind of implied in that you want to define what they are. And so as you're looking, read that question, answer that question. After you've read the question, thought about it, think about what it means, go and look at the rubric associated with that question. So the rubric is going to be the grading sheet that I'm going to use to evaluate that question. And so as you look at this question, the first part is, are you answering the basic question correctly? Did you do what I just described? That you selected one of the characteristics, you selected one of the tools, you defined each one, and you related to each other. And if you did that well, you're going to get 10 points. If you did that decently, you get 8. If you did it poorly, you're going to get 6. 4 if you don't define them or relate them to each other. And if you didn't answer the question, you're going to get 0. The second part of that question is it calls for you to use real-world examples and companies. Okay, so that means you, and we're going to spend a little bit more time on this later on, but you've got real-world examples of that characteristic or that tool, and they're coming from real-world companies. And you're showing an intersection between the tool and the characteristic. And again, you can see the points associated with that. And then finally, are you using that real-world example and that real-world company as a basis for analysis? In other words, you're not just dumping it out there and saying this is what happened. You're actually thinking about it, and you're actually applying it. So there are rubrics for each of the questions. You should read those rubrics and make sure that you're answering them in such a way to get the score that you're hoping to get on the midterm exam. Next point is, we've spent really a lot of time talking about the Macumber Cube or the CNSS model. You really should, on each question, look at this and see how does this apply to answering the questions. And on the midterm, it definitely applies on question 1 and question 3. And people often struggle on question 3 to go back and look at each of the tools, policy, education, and technology, and apply them appropriately to question 3. Mentioned this earlier, but for questions 1 and 2, you want to use real-world companies. And I've put some icons up there so that you can, get in your mind what a real-world company looks like. You want to use real-world examples. So you don't. Maybe you start with a generic discussion of a firewall, if that's the topic. But you really want to get into, this is the Cisco firewall, or this is the Palo Alto firewall, and how they particularly help you answer that question. So again, real-world companies and examples kick in on questions 1 and 2. Be careful to, or try to use both of those. Finally, you want to be concise in what you're trying to do. You want the document to be single space, normal font. Normally, folks will do this with 2 to 4 pages per question, and those pages have no grammar or spelling errors in them. And then finally, the rough draft doesn't equal the final copy. If you're trying to submit this at the last second, you're not going to do well on your midterm. You want to write it out, sleep on it, think about it, then go back and modify it some more, make sure you didn't miss anything, and that you've done each of these kind of 6 hints or techniques of reread the question, make sure you're answering it, read the rubric, make sure you're answering each question correctly, use the CNSS model in answering questions, specifically questions 1 and 3. Use RealWorld Companies and examples, specifically in questions 1 and 2, and then be concise so that you don't have any errors with that. Well, that's it for this short video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and let me know if you've got any questions on the midterm.